Акцијски план со конкретни чекори за спроведување на постепена интеграција на земјите од Западен Балкан до 2024 година и потоа. Како и редовна покана, овие земји неформално учествуваат на состаноците на Советот на Европската Унија, додека финансиската поддршка треба да стане поефикасна преку подобрен систем на стимулации, моделирани според плановите за реконструкција и отпорност. Сето ова е дел од планот на официјална Виена. Австриските министри за надворешни работи и европски интеграции Александар Шаленберг и Каролина Штадлер сметаат дека Европската Унија итно треба да се фокусира на проширувањето, но не само декларативно, туку конкретно, особено имајќи го предвид целиот настанат хаос со Украина, но и статус квото во кое се наоѓаат земјите од Балканот по децении. Затоа во Виена разговаравме токму со шефот на австриската дипломатија, Шаленберг.
Mr. Schallenberg, thank you for having us here and thank you for being a part of our show. Austria and you yourself personally, you are among those political forces who are promoting fast enlargement of the Western Balkan countries, especially now when we are talking for a so-called fast line for Ukraine and Moldova. Why do you think it's important for the European Union to keep focused on the Balkans now?
Thank you for coming to Vienna and thank you for giving me this opportunity to explain myself. I believe for us the Western Balkans is our immediate neighborhood. And I always say it's not the backyard, it's the center court, it's a party of Europe. It's surrounded by EU member states. And from Austrian perspective, the EU integration is simply incomplete without the Western Balkans. And I'm talking about all 6 Western Balkan countries being fully integrated in the European Union. And you said something where I would already enter and say I disagree. We shouldn't have a two-class society among candidate countries. I don't want a situation following George Orwell's Animal Farm. All candidate countries are equal, but some are more equal than others. We have been in a process of enlargement for 20 years now, since Thessaloniki with the Western Balkans. And we shouldn't now put 2 countries, I'm talking about Ukraine and Moldova, on the fast lane, and put the other countries on the sidelines. That would be a grave geopolitical mistake. I believe there's a geopolitical moment now, because of the Russian war of aggression towards Ukraine, that every capital in Europe understands that enlargement is not a bureaucratic, legalistic process, but it's a geopolitical process. It's actually the most important geopolitical tool we have in the European Union. And when we think about the past, when Greece joined in 1981, it was to strengthen a young democracy. And when Spain and Portugal joined 5 years later in 1986, it was the same thing. Spain had a golpe, a tried coup d'etat in Madrid only 5 years earlier. So at that time, the leaders of Europe understood that enlargement is a geopolitical instrument and not a bureaucratic instrument. And we have to revert to this thinking again and understand it's either our model of life that we export stability and prosperity, or we might risk importing instability and insecurity.
Кога летоска Шаленберг беше во Скопје заедно со неговите колеги од Чешка и Словачка, Јан Липавски и Мирослав Влаховски, порача дека без неопходните уставни измени Македонија може да излета од шините кон Европската Унија, но многумина, главно поради погрешниот превод. Тоа тогаш го потолкуваа како закана дека земјата ќе биде изолирана. Шаленберг сега вели дека бил запрепастен како погрешно била преведена изјавата, но и како погрешно била примена неговата порака, и дека во Скопје дошол со најпријателски мотиви.
First of all, when I came in July together with my colleagues from the Czech Republic and Slovakia on behalf of the European Union, with a mandate from the High Representative Josep Borrell, we came as friends. And I was myself astonished when I found out later on how, due to some translations or whatever the reasons were, it created some emotionality, which I understand, it is a tricky issue. It is an emotional issue. And I would say positive thinking, that's good. As long as we are emotional about the European Union, it's a good sign. But yes, North Macedonia is for us a key partner in the region. North Macedonia has undergone enormous efforts to get as far as they did. And we finally managed to open accession negotiations last year. And now there's one step. It's the necessary amendments of the Constitution.
Во однос на уставните измени, тој вели дека ќе ја повтори пораката од тие не смеат да бидат дел од партиски или политички математики, и дека иако ја разбира фрустрацијата кај граѓаните, клучно за земјата која и досега толку многу стори на својот пат по неу, е да продолжи напред, а дека секое реотварање на пакетот е ризик тој да стане Пандорина кутија. Сепак, во однос на цената на тој пат, измерена преку трговија со правдата, во однос за шпекулациите за позадината на измените на кривичниот законник, неговиот одговор е многу јасен.
You are following the debate about the changes of the criminal code in North Macedonia. Should we sacrifice the justice and the rule of law in the name of European Union?
That's obviously a trick question because the one goes with the other. And
That's
yes,
my point.
we are following the debates within North Macedonia very closely. You can imagine that nearly every day I'm briefed about something going on in the region. And if you talk about the amendments on the penal law, yes, we are concerned. And we have to keep up rule of law and sanctions, especially on matters like corruption, have to be dissuasive and have to be proportionate.
Шаленберг е покрај ова верува дека ќе се најде најдоброто можно решение.
And again, as I said, there is a window of opportunity. A window of opportunity because of the war of Russia on Ukraine, the war of aggression, that capitals are thinking anew about enlargement and understand that there's no political vacuum. And yes, we do have Russia as a possible spoiler in the Western Balkans. We have seen it in the past. And I believe we have to understand that it's either Europe that is present and all these countries are part of the European family of values, or we might see suddenly alternative models of life or models of economy popping up that wouldn't be in our interest, and I believe very deeply it wouldn't be in the interest of the people of the region. So that is the main goal. I don't see my task in commenting internal policies. European Union is not a one-way street. It's not only Brussels having to deliver, it's also partners having to deliver. But I believe this is feasible.
Дел од земјите членки сепак строго стоят на ставот дека Европската унија прво мора внатрешно да се реформира, па дури потоа да прима нови член. Шаленберг вели дека апсолутно е неточно дека прво мора да се случат внатрешните реформи и дека ова е всушност само алиби на некои земји кои се против проширувањето.
Well, I mean, every organization has to be ready to reform. You cannot, stay fixed because otherwise you slowly die. But I would be very strong against using the reform debate as a pretext to, again, slow down enlargement. I was myself...
I've seen that.
Absolutely, it has been
statements.
Absolutely, and that's why I'm very clear. And I say no. Yes, there are things we can reform and we should look into, but it's not something which is a condition for enlargement. We have agreed in the Treaty of Lisbon the necessary institutional acts to be able to enlarge with all 6 countries of the Western Balkans. We have said so at the time. We can lower the members of the European Commission. We have rules on the European Parliament. We have rules on every institution. And we have decided on a decision-making process in the Council which is independent of the number of member states of the European Union. So we have everything in place. And I don't want now some countries which might be still hesitant to say we have to reform before we enlarge. I think both things have to go in common. And maybe I would even claim that enlargement could be a catalyst for reforms. So let's put it the other way around.
Ова меѓу другото е важно да се стори во услови кога ЕУ сака да се ја создаде својата позиција како клучен геополитички играч.
Well, I would claim that we are stronger, more resilient, more flexible than we believe ourselves. Who would have said on the 23rd of February that the EU27 will stay united, that the EU27 will have the capacity to adopt 11 sanctions packages? Probably nobody, or very few people. But we have been united up to now, and it's our biggest asset. And even during the pandemic, everything I read about Europe is not present and is failing. Well, actually looking back, the free pluralistic societies have been proven to be more adaptive, that they can learn, that they can change the course. Autocracies are not, and they have proven it again. So I believe, A, we are better and stronger than we believe ourselves, but yes, B, we have to get better. And we are seeing it especially in the so-called, I don't like the term, global south. If we see what is happening, the avalanche, you could say, we are seeing in Western Africa, in the Sahel region, where you have, in Niger, for instance, anti-French slogans sung while Russian flags are waved. This should make us think twice that actually our soft power, our outreach is not good enough. We have to get better in explaining ourselves. If Russia is capable, while it's invading in a neo-imperialistic way, a neighboring country, is still capable to make everybody or some people believe that it is us who created the war, that it's our problem, that we are the imperialists, then we have something we have to do about. And I believe that is the big change which is taking place now. And Austria is among those countries favoring and pushing for a more coordinated outreach of the European Union. Without lecturing, without finger-pointing, without moralizing, taking partners seriously, respectfully, but still explaining our clear position.
Интервјуто со министерот го завршивме со разговор за предизвиците на демократијата денес. Шаленберг е заболет демократ, кој покрај сите превирања во светски рамки е убеден дека нема подобар систем и дека потребно е сите демократи да бидат погласни, но и да им биде обезбеден поголем простор во политиката, јавноста и во медиумите.
I would make 2 points. I don't believe democracy is a crisis. Yes, we are in a minority on this planet. About 20% of states worldwide follow our model of life, pluralistic, liberal democracies. But I still believe deeply it's the best system to give individual people the possibility to live their lives according to their own beliefs. That we are challenged in some countries, that we have either left-wing or right-wing, far right or far left parties coming up.
They're meeting somewhere in some
Absolutely,
point.
but yeah, absolutely, politics is like a circle, actually. Is something we have to deal with, but it doesn't put into doubt democracy per se. And sometimes we have to be careful about the way we talk about democracy. I'm constantly saying now, let's watch out that we don't treat elections as the source of problems. Elections are the very heart of democracy. And if we think about the upcoming American elections in the United States, if we think about Slovakia, we think about Austria, we think about France or many other countries, or think about the debates we had on Italy before Meloni took over, and she's doing a brilliant job. So let's watch out that we don't treat elections as a source of inconvenience, of problems and insecurity. It's the very heart of our democracy. And yes, we have to debate, we have to explain ourselves. And I believe still that democracy is made by the center. We always hear, and that's our biggest problems as politicians too, the 20% at the fringes left and right who shout, who are loud in the media. The 60% in the middle who simply want to live their lives, have a decent income, have a perspective, and have a sense of security. Those are mostly not heard enough in the public realm, but they make up democracy. So I'm positive. Yes, we have to do our explanation, but never forget that we are actually in a global struggle. And we have found out brutally now the last 2 years that our way of living is considered by some as an act of aggression. An act of aggression which, in their eyes, justifies them to react with military means. And that should, to a certain degree, embolden us, because it means that our model of life is very strong.
Mr. Schallenberg, thank you very much for these messages. I think it's very important to keep this spirit in promoting democracy worldwide. Thank you for being part of Agenda 35.
Thank you. Thank you again for coming to Vienna.